A brand new Gundam movie has just hit Netflix, but is it any good? And can you watch without having seen anything Gundam in your life? Well, let's find out. After Shah's rebellion, Hathaway Noah leads an insurgency against Earth Federation, but meeting an enemy officer and a mysterious woman alters his fate. Welcome back to mchat, the second best place in the known universe to talk about geek stuff. So I've never seen anything Mobile Suit Gundam related in my life, so going into this, I wasn't really sure what to expect. I know that it was a direct sequel to Shah's counterattack, which, once again, not seen anything Gundam related, so I have not seen that. I haven't seen the original trilogy, nothing of that nature. But I do know the basics in terms of plot and themes and such that it tackles about war, governments, terrorist organisations, stuff that can get very complex and very, very political at times if they choose to go that route. And watching this film, I kind of know that Gundam is that route. I knew that from the start. I knew that it's much more of a Star Trek-like series rather than something like Star Wars. But now I definitely want to go back and take a look at some of the other Gundam content out there because this was a fantastic movie. Now I have my problems in the way that it's structured and the fact that it's part of a trilogy and therefore it's kind of just part of one story, but I will get to that soon. However, let's just start with what I did like. The animation, first off, is unbelievably impressive. It's that nice blend where it's much more traditional 2D, except it's got a bit more of a cel-shaded 3D-esque look to it, but it doesn't take away from the traditional style of anime. The action sequences particularly stand out. Now this film starts out with a terrorist attack on a plane which just hooks you right into the story, but then the actual fights with the Gundams, of course, that is the stuff that people come here for, especially when it comes to the action. People want to see more of Gundam action rather than human action, and this delivers on that front. The Gundam fights in this, or the mobile suit fights in this anyway, are amazing. My favourite part of the entire film is about the midpoint, where Hathaway, our main character, and another character called Gigi, they are escaping from this hotel that's just been attacked because there's terrorist organisation stuff going on, and there's terrorist attack on this entire city. The Earth Federation send in mobile suits, and then we get this excellent battle between the Gundams, but that's not even the most amazing part of it. The best part is the fact that we see most of this from a ground level, and it shows the effects on these people, how civilians are caught in the crossfire, and the most interesting part of that especially is the character of Hathaway. Now Hathaway is a part of the terrorist organisation in this film. I mentioned it in the synopsis so I don't consider it to be a major spoiler, and it's kind of well known and it's a very major point of the character. But for the majority of the film he's surrounded by Earth Federation officers, Earth Federation governors, and that is fascinating to watch that dynamic play out. He gets to see the other side of these things that he's causing. You know, he's getting to see the other side of the conflict, but he's also getting to see the people that are caught in between the crossfire. And that sequence in particular, you have the mobile suits crashing into buildings are being knocked down and killing innocent people, and it's very fascinating to see the reaction of Hathaway, that moral ambiguity that comes into play because of that. It is just amazing, amazing character work. Now I'm not someone, as I said, who have seen the other Gundam films, so I'm not really aware of Hathaway's backstory. I know that it's mentioned and brought up in the film, but I didn't really understand the context of it. But even with that aside, I think his characterization in this, and particularly that stuff where he's seeing the other side of the conflict, is incredibly fascinating and makes for a very interesting character who I can't wait to see moving forward. Let's talk more about the technical stuff though. Aside from the animation and the action which I've mentioned, the sound design and the soundtrack in this film are amazing. Particularly the sound design, of course, with the Gundams fighting each other, and even the voice acting I found to be really good. I watched the dubbed version and I thought it was a very solid dub, and it does upset me a bit that this ended up being a Netflix film. I thought this would be fantastic to watch on the big screen. I do have surround sound in my home, so watching it on 4K TV with surround sound was still a great experience, but everything about the sound design and the soundtrack, it felt extremely cinematic, and I for one would have loved to watch this on the biggest screen possible, preferably IMAX. The biggest problem with the film though, and I mentioned it at the start, is that it is part of a trilogy, and because of that, the fact that this trilogy is much more of a 3-part story rather than being 3 movies that are in a trilogy. Take like the original trilogy, Star Wars for example. All 3 of those films stand on their own, however there is a overarching plot, an overarching story to it. This is very much one story split into 3 parts. So particularly the first 2 acts feel like a first act, or the first 2/3 of the film feel like a first act, and then you kind of move into this final battle, but it doesn't really feel like a final battle that is the third act. And as I said, animation, action, absolutely spectacular. However, the overall feel of it didn't really feel like a final battle. And, you know, in those first 2/3, it was definitely exposition heavy, dialogue heavy, not a whole lot of action in terms of that stuff. So I think that it doesn't quite feel like a complete film. However, once the whole trilogy's come out, we're going to be able to judge it a lot better. Overall though, I think Mobile Suit Gundam Hathaway is a fantastic film with excellent exploration of themes and characters, and this dynamic that plays out because of seeing the consequence of your actions with this terrorist organisation. Very fascinating stuff that can get very, very complex, and I for one was completely enthralled by it. On a technical level, it's a masterpiece. Sound design, soundtrack, animation, action, absolutely spectacular. It does definitely suffer from being one part of an overarching story, but we are obviously going to be able to judge it much better when we've got the next two films. So with all that in mind, I'm going to give Mobile Suit Gundam Hathaway a B. So the question you're probably all wondering, can you watch this film without having seen anything Gundam related? Well, as I've not seen anything Gundam related and gave it a B, that probably gives you the answer. But anyways guys, if you could make sure to leave a like on this video as it does really help out the channel, and also consider subscribing if you enjoy this video and want to see plenty more Netflix anime content from me. And make sure to head on down to the comment section below, let me know what you thought of Mobile Suit Gundam Hathaway if you've seen it, and also let me know, where should I start with the Gundam franchise? Do I start with that original trilogy, and from there what else do I need to watch? What's the chronological order? What do I need to watch within the main timeline? Is there anything else from this franchise that you'd recommend? As always guys, thank you for tuning in to mchat today, and remember, even in the worst of times, there's always entertainment. See you guys next time.